Witch word of the day. Invoke. Verb. You wish to invoke the spirits. That's the craft, remember?
That is the craft.
But invocation means to draw a spirit or spirit force into one's own body. This is a way to gain knowledge or skills from an outside force, not to be confused with evocation, where one calls on and sends energy outside of oneself. Possessive invocation is where a person successfully invoked may be moved to speak or act in non-characteristic ways, acting as the deity or spirit, and they may lose all or some self-awareness while doing so, like Moon Knight or something like that.
You haven't even read that?
Wait, what are you doing with the book?
So he has the confidence to finish the story.
Hear now the words of the witches.
Can you hear the words of the witches? Yeah, the words of the witches.
Welcome to Words of the Witches, the Charmed podcast that will guide you through the lesser-known published lore of the Charmed universe.
In this night and in this hour, we call upon our fanboy power, bringing education and stupefaction to all of you.
Together, we will use our knowledge and reverence abundantly, but also find ourselves sassy and delightful.
Which is why we will truly be charmed.
Okay, here we are. Words of the Witches, episode 113. I'm Kevin, your resident Charmed resource.
And I'm Sean, and I just love the supernatural. You haven't even read that?
Yes. And
I'm just a hot witch slut. I'm Phoenix. Hi.
hi. Welcome back. Yeah.
Thank you for having me back. I'm Phoenix of the Witch Bitches review family of two people.
Yeah.
The House of
Yes.
Bitches. This is where I'm.
Yes, I was just on your show for a P3H2O episode, which was such a good
Yes.
episode.
It was that dramatic reenactment, Kevin, is my favorite thing I've ever made. It's so funny.
It's so funny.
It's so funny. Yeah, so go listen to it. The episode's
Yes.
called Wet Hard Docs.
It was a good time. It was a good time.
It was fun.
I'm going to do the poll results first. So, would you cast a spell for, and then get options of what you would cast a spell on. So cast a spell of protection, love, career or wealth, or happiness and guidance. Phoenix, what would you have said?
Oh God. Most of my spells lately are either like money or dick related. So one of those two. Or
Okay.
both. I don't know.
Get
Yeah.
paid for sex.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess
Yeah.
love, I guess, if we're going with that direction.
I'm not a slut. I just love love.
I just love yeah.
But yeah, it has actually tied. Protection and happiness guidance were tied at like 42 votes each. So
Nice.
Wow.
all right. So last week we had the unfortunate news of Shannon Doherty passing. I made a whole episode about it, and I got very emotional. So I'm trying to avoid that this time. But in case you guys wanted to say anything about that, I wanted to give you the opportunity.
I've just been sad, honestly. Like, I've been rewatching season 3 of Charmed and just, like, really enjoying Prue's character in a new way. Yeah, it's just really, really upsetting. Super sad.
Yeah, and I'd encourage everybody to not be like past Sean was, or like current Sean's mother is, and look more into Shannon Doherty and don't just write her off as, oh, wasn't she that bitch? Like, she's a very layered person, and she was a very passionate person, and I'm thankful that I've gotten to know Kevin and gotten to know so much about her, and I appreciate her on a whole new level. So if you just think of her as she was that bitch, like, go look into her life and figure out why she was such an amazing person and celebrate her for that.
Yeah.
Why she really was that bitch, you know?
Yeah,
Exactly.
and she is that bitch.
Yeah. She
But
is
in like
that
a
bitch.
cool way.
No, she's amazing, and it's been a thing. My phone is blowing up, obviously, and we went to work the next day. People are like, "Are you okay?" They know me so well.
Oh.
Yeah,
I texted you right when I heard.
No.
I was like, no. Yeah, I was. Yeah, I'm glad I had my moments of crying it all out. But yeah, she was definitely, a wonderful, beautiful person doing wonderful, beautiful things. So, This week we are finishing off the book we've been covering. This is
Oh.
I thought you were
yes,
going to say
finishing
each
off.
other. Damn.
Naturally, I am here for the climax.
I wouldn't have it any other way. Yes.
Oh, I know.
So this is the Book of Shadows, the Unofficial Charmed Companion by N.E. Genge, Nagai Genge, published October 10th, 2000.
Bless you.
Bless you. We're going to be covering the Observant Witch section. Technically, we are going to be doing the section 6-2, which is the people who charm, but that's like easy peasy. Nothing really is there. But,
Solid.
so you don't have this book, correct, Phoenix?
No, I do not. And based on what I've heard from you, I'm thankful.
I mean, we'll talk about it, how we feel about it at the end. But yeah, there's things. This section is different than the other sections of this book. So, because most of this book has been talking about, witchcraft and Charmed and having them all together. This one is mostly about Charmed, but it's actually essentially kind of what you do on your podcast. They take each episode and they have a magical tidbit or something or other.
Gotcha.
That they say. So,
I mean, I love Charmed and I love Witchcraft, so that's why I'm here. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's a bit of an episode guide in a sense too, in the way that they give you like the episode title, when it was released, who was in it, the actors in it, and things like that. But we're not going to cover that part of it. We're just going to get into the magical notes. And since this was published in 2000, it only covers the first 2 seasons. Cool.
This episode should be called "Two Cute Boys Read Phoenix a Bedtime Story."
Aww, I love that.
That's cute. Something Wicca this way comes. This episode establishes most of the rules for the Charmed version of witchcraft. Everything from the Wiccan, is that Reed? Of the real world to the mythos of the Charmed One's televised universe. It's also the first time we see the spirit board in use. Although Grams Hollowell is later established as the one flicking the pages of the Book of Shadows, no explanation was ever given for the movement of the spirit board pointer.
I think it was probably not that. I feel like if there's one thing that Siren and I harp on enough on our show is that Charmed is terrible at planning. So I think they were just like, what would be cool is if this thing moved and no one was touching it. And that's all it was.
Retroactively, it probably was Grams, or it could just been the magic in the house, like magic happening.
I fully think it was Grams. I think
Yeah.
Grams did it for sure. I mean, if she was the one flipping the pages in the book the whole time, why wouldn't she have been fucking with them other ways,
I've got you under my skin. And an increasing percentage of those who define themselves as witches are calling their craft a lifestyle, not a religion. They claim it is a path to greater awareness, like yoga, not through the agency of some outside power, but through their own knowledge, study, and will. How does Charm's balance of religion and lifestyle issue fit with your thoughts?
Charmed is like very pointedly like Christian based.
Definitely.
A lot of the dichotomy that they use is very like Western good versus evil Christianity kind of focused. And there's actually, apart from like the fact that they're actively doing witchcraft, there's not really that much like Wiccan spirituality in the show. A lot of it is just, it's something that all occult supernatural TV shows do. They'll take like words or names and ascribe different meanings to them or alter them a little bit. Charmed just happens to do it poorly a lot more often than I think some other shows have done. Like in the first season in particular, there's a lot of like, and they get better about this later, but a lot of like misused deity names in season 1. And I think in this episode, they sort of misappropriate the Hamsa for like a demon vanquish or the Hand of Fatima.
Well, Phoenix, I do want to thank you for not morphing magical notes. In describing her father's ring, Prue speaks of duality, the balance of male and female. while Wiccan philosophy tends to concentrate on Trinity principles such as the concept of maiden, mother, and crone. I was looking at Kevin when I said that, as well as on triplet philosophies such as the threefold law, which states that what a Wiccan does comes back threefold. More traditional witchcraft emphasizes duality, opposition, and balance, light and dark, male and female, the god and the goddess. How does Piper's assertion that powers, the charmed ones, special powers at least, are a chick thing fit into these ideologies?
That's homophobic.
It is.
That's what I was saying. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually, I mean, in modern times, people are less focused on modern times. I say that like 2000 was like a millennia ago. No, but in modernity, in modern day, in like our current culture, the gender stuff is a lot less influential in the craft. I think we've kind of evolved away from that. There still is a lot of like threefold law people, and not everybody practices that way.
right.
But I mean, for the most part, the stuff about like balance and light and dark and stuff, I think that that's still pretty ingrained into the culture of witchcraft. But in terms of like the gender binary stuff, that's almost exclusively like traditional Wicca now, and most other witches don't really do anything with that. So it's a lot more inclusive now than it used to be.
Yeah, and it's interesting how, the Halliwells always thought like, oh, it's passed down through the female line, and then oops, surprise, not really.
Then there's a boy. Hello.
Yeah, so I love that they kind of like shook up their own narrative.
I think they realized really quickly that that was kind of a big misstep in terms of like accurate witchcraft representation, and they tried to correct it pretty quickly. So I commend them for that.
Dead man dating magical notes. From the first episode, much has been made of the consequences of casting spells for personal gain. It's a karmic no-no, but this is a constant thing that comes up all the time. Personal gain, whatever.
Yeah.
Sliding a dessert cart into her ex-boyfriend's path isn't exactly an example of altruistic behavior. How would you define personal gain?
All of my magic is for personal gain.
Yeah, that's the point.
Literally every single thing I do is stuff for me. Like, personal gain, the whole personal gain stuff is stupid. I like the whole time, every time they do it, I'm like, but that's what magic is for. I'm sorry.
Right.
It's kind of funny too reading this after seeing the whole series, because like they even kind of throw it out in the series. It's not a big deal after like season 3.
Yeah, except for when they wanted like, oh, Phoebe, you've been using personal gain, let's punish you.
Right?
And then Paige does it even worse the next episode.
Dream sorcerer. Dreams continue to defy explanation by current science. We know we have them, but we have no idea how or why. Esoteric practice has always believed dreams to be gateways to other forms of consciousness, other realms of thought. Particularly vibrant or persistent dreams are often thought to be prophetic. I have a really weird, quick little dream story for you guys. It really weirds me out because when I was young, my mom had a dream that I was playing on the playground with 2 other boys and I killed them. And she came and helped me bury them so that nobody would know that I killed these boys. Right. Very vivid. Years later, when I was a teenager, I had a dream that my mom's dream was real. So I woke up, I was like, oh my God, did I kill these boys?
Oh my
I'm pretty sure I didn't, but part of me is like, did I though?
Maybe we should edit that part out. I think Sean just confessed to murder on the air.
Find that milk carton from that year.
You'll never catch me.
But yeah, I've had deja vu a lot. I've always had dreams where like I had no idea what they meant. People that didn't know, and then all of a sudden, like years later, I'm like, whoa, this is familiar.
Yeah,
that happens quite a bit.
I think deja vu is a psychic experience. I think it's you either connecting to something or reliving something, either from the past or the future. I fully think that like a lot of really mundane experiences are magical, that we just write off as like nonsense. But that being said, I do sometimes get a lot of people that come into the store that I work in, like So, I watched Princess and the Frog the other day, and then I had a dream that my uncle turned into a green frog, and then he got food poisoning. Isn't that weird?
That's okay.
Like,
That's a stretch.
no, it's not that weird. I think maybe he just shouldn't have DoorDashed Panda Express. Like, that's
All right. Oh, then we have Sean's favorite episode ever, the wedding from hell.
I have feelings too. It's not. It's bad.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to read this one. Pretty much going over the whole history of Hecate, which you've been doing a lot of stuff with that lately. So why don't you just talk about your experience with her?
She is my main squeeze right now.
Yeah.
I started working with her a little over a year and a half ago, and my entire freaking life changed. A relationship that I was in that was going nowhere ended. I left my dead-end job and got a job working at a freaking witchcraft store months after initiating this relationship with her, and my life has been on just a rise ever since. I've developed a whole lot magically. My relationship with her has taught me so much about how witchcraft works, and I've learned things. And sometimes I'll be working on a potion, and I'll just hear a voice in my head that's are you sure you want to put that in there? I think maybe you should do something else. And I always feel like that's her, and I get redirected by her all the time, and she's just super cool. And I interact with her both on she's a real being level, and also on an archetypal level of being a powerful witch and knowing my craft and knowing my shit. I invoke that of her all the time.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah, this whole blurb here is pretty much saying that I don't think she's as bad as Charmed made her seem to be.
Duh.
So I'm I don't need this.
No, she's totally not. She's totally not.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the fourth sister. And this says, mirrors as gateways are traditional tools in the practice of magic. Seen as windows to other worlds, a means of communicating both thoughts and words, useful for the storage of incidental power raised during other rituals. And for divination, mirrors are often kept close to workspaces. In this episode, the mirror is the channel through which Aviva and Kali communicate. How might a mirror be adapted for spell work aimed at contacting an inner self?
There you go.
Yeah,
That's scrying stuff, isn't it?
It is. That is exactly
There you
scrying. Look
go.
at you. You know all of the things, Kevin. I'm happy to be included, but you don't even need me here.
But we want you here.
Mirrors are super cool. There's a lot of superstition about them that comes from a lot of different cultures, and back from times when mirrors were made out of shit that could kill you. So I don't know a ton about mirror work. I know I personally use them for defensive magic. I'll put sigils and oils and herbs on the back of a handheld mirror and hang it in my window to keep spells out and stuff. But also for self-reflection, again, yeah, that's just scrying. You stare at it for a little while and then you're like, maybe life's not so bad.
The truth is out there and it hurts. A number of forms of divination can be adapted for use as truth spells. Asking whether something is true is as valid as a question as any other. What credence should you lend to such answers, though? What factors might affect the answer? Would it be possible to narrow your questions and eliminate some of those variables? Might this be one case where the ability to know doesn't equate with a right or need to know?
So there's a lot of factors that can go into influencing divination. Oh, excuse me. A lot of the times, if I'm feeling particularly emotional about something, I won't read about it. I'll just let myself process and feel the stuff. Because if I'm pulling cards when I'm pissed, all the cards are going to come out just reflecting what I'm feeling. You're putting that energy forth. Divination has to be a very objective process. It is very metaphorical and intuitive, and you have to take some liberties when you're looking at stuff. But if you're looking for a specific kind of outcome in a card, if you're reading for yourself especially, you're going to find it. You're going to find what you're looking for. So you have to stay very zoomed out about it. And one of my favorite ways to divine for myself is just asking a yes or no question to my tarot cards, and then basing the the answer on whether the cards came out a majority direct or reversed. And then from there, I'll go in and try to read what the cards are saying after that. So I'm like, if I have a question of like, am I being a stupid bitch right now? And I pull the cards and they're like, yes. I'm like, well, I'm just like, okay, well then I'll just stop and go home.
I like that. That's what we talked about, I think 2 weeks ago, when we talked about like runes or like the
with Marshall.
pebbles. So that's interesting.
Mhm.
The witch is back, and in this episode, Phoebe discovers two important things about their magical journey. First, that they have the ability to create new spells for themselves, and second, that even good witches have cast curses in the Charmed universe. The traditional followers of witchcraft have no Wiccan read or threefold law to determine whether or not their actions, physical or magical, are ethical. No spell is good or bad. That determination is made solely on the intent of the witch. How might this apply to Melinda Warren's curse?
Ooh.
That's a heavy question for
I
a
know.
Charmed guidebook. That's intense.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm telling you, this book is, it's interesting.
Wow, that's big. And it's also accurate, true. Not everybody that practices witchcraft follows the read or the threefold law. That's not a thing for everyone. Which opens up like a whole other can of worms about like the ethics of spellcasting in general. Like, should we even be doing it? Yeah, is spellcasting in general ethical? Is changing the outcomes of things ethical? Is influencing people around you ethical? But people do things like that all the time in mundane ways, right? Setting themselves up for success.
Right.
So what's the difference in doing something like that magically? In terms of like Melinda's curse, I feel like if like a dude burned me at the stake, I'd be like, I'm cursing you.
I'm a little mad.
Bye.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. How much bad can a good witch get away with? What constitutes, the good versus bad? It's very, there's a lot of gray area, a lot of middle ground that is in there. So
It's all personal decisions, right? Like, what do you feel is personally ethical and operating with your own moral value system? It's like that debate that like Christians give to atheists all the time. It's like, what stops you from being a terrible person if you don't believe in God? Well, like, why is that even in your mind in the first place?
Right. All right. Wicca envy. Witches, like everyone else, must live in the real world as well as the arcane. Blending the two isn't always easy. Just as gays and lesbians frequently have difficulty identifying themselves. I know, in a charm book in 2000. Look at that. Yeah, they frequently have difficulty identifying themselves as such in public, even to family and friends, witches often choose to hide their lifestyle from others. It's resulted in a play on words coming out of the broom closet to describe the choice to live openly as a witch. If you were to begin incorporating elements of magic and ritual into your life, what would you be a broom closet witch or an outed witch?
I mean,
Outed, obviously.
I'm here, aren't I? I literally I think I'm like the most public you can be about witchcraft.
Yeah.
Like, I talk about it online. It's my job, like literally. Yeah, that was an interesting comparison though that they drew to queer people, because I think the intersection of witchcraft and queerness is like they're like right together. It's all one thing, right? Witchcraft has always been like a place for the disenfranchised, and queer people have always been disenfranchised. So I think that like the fact that there's a draw to witchcraft for people that are generally outcast makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And the queer fandom, it's very strong with Charmed, so.
Yeah. Despite there only being like two characters ever that were gay on the show.
I think it's funny how the things that are most accepting are the things that get the most hate. Because, like, in the queer community, it's all about, love, and drag is about love, and everything's about love. And, like, Wiccan and witchcraft is all about, like, I don't care what religion you are. This is for anybody. But yet, both are so attacked by people who are supposed to be following those pillars. All right. Feats of Clay. This episode brings home time and again that in some cases, events just have to run their own course, and that magic isn't the answer to everything. What sort of deliberation might help identify those times for you?
For me, it's about, like, how much energy I want to spend on something. Like, do I want to do a spell for this? Do I want to like go through the motions, use my supplies? Like, is it worth it for me to like waste my time doing magic on it, or should I just be a bitch about it? Like, what? Where's the line? Um, that episode though
Yeah.
is just bad. My favorite part is the end. when the credits roll, that's the good part of that episode.
There's one Prue and Phoebe like sister moment in the middle of that that's nice, but that's about it.
One thing that's been actually really inspiring to me is 2 years ago I read the Satanic Bible, and just
Mhm.
the idea that like everything is in our own control, like there's not some being out there saying like you can and can't do this. That was very inspiring to me, because whenever I'm in those moments where I'm like, God, life sucks right now, I go through that kind of feeling it for maybe a day or so, and then I start to ask myself, okay, you can sit here and wallow in it, or you can do something to like dig your way out. So it's really inspiring and helps me like make plans and ideas for how to better myself.
That was why I asked about your magical practice, actually, because I remember hearing a couple episodes ago you talked about your Satanist sort of path, and I was very curious about that. Because what's that experience been like for you to like follow that?
It's been very liberating. I think the things that really spoke to me about the Bible, and this is the Anton LaVey, is he talked about like if you're an alcoholic, if you sit and pray to God to help you not be an alcoholic, you're not doing anything to like better yourself.
Right.
Whereas the way of the Satanist is, well, if you take steps to go to AA or like to actively try to stop drinking, that's you doing that, and you should be proud of the fact that you did that. So that's helped me, go back to school and really like dig into my work. Also, it talked about how like a lot of people think that Satanists kill animals or like want to kill children. And it talked about how children are actually sacred to Satanists, because as a child, that's when you're most tapped into your like extrasensory, feeling the world around you, seeing ghosts, all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
because Satan is part goat, animals are actually very sacred to Satanists, because why would you want to kill something that your master is part of, even though Satanists don't believe in Satan? So I thought that was kind of funny, but interesting at the same time.
Oh, that's really cool. It's like it's all about like personal responsibility and like taking accountability
Right.
for yourself, which is what I mean. I use witchcraft for that too. Like,
Mhm.
it's like, did I actually look for work when I did that job spell, or am I like expecting it to do it for me? That's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm so glad that you have that and that it's helped you.
And I've
Yay.
always been more tapped into like the supernatural, and like I feel ghosts. I know when they're there. I see things out of the corner of my eye. I have a spirit of a cat that follows me, that kind
Ooh.
of like clues me in on when something big is going to happen in my life. It was funny. I saw this cat out of the corner of my eye like for years and years, and my ex came over one day. He's like, "Do you know you have a spirit of a cat following you?" I was like, "What the fuck?"
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The Wendigo is next. Okay.
Wendigo.
It was once thought that witches could take on the aspect of various animals at will, a belief that's commonly held by the Native American shamans known as skinwalkers, the Zimbabwean Akia, and many others. For what purpose might a witch of any type want this ability?
I mean, because it would be cool. What?
We
Why
read that.
would I? Why would I not? Why would I not do that? If
Yeah.
I could turn into a cat and just fuck around all day, I would do that. I would do that.
I would want to lick my own
Yeah.
asshole. Like that would be so much fun.
I would never leave the house. Like,
See?
From Fear to Eternity. Oh god, this one's long. It's mostly talking about like amulets and charms and talismans that have shown up in Charmed. Yeah, so one thing actually that Damien Eccles talked about in his book is he has this idea that you kind of, I think I read this a while ago, but it was something where you rub your hands together, you create energy, and then you put that energy into a talisman. Like it could just be a necklace, a coin, just anything that you carry on you. And the less you remember that you have that item on you, the more powerful it's supposed to be in what you want it to do.
yep, that is 100% on the money for sure.
I know
Have,
things.
Yeah. Have you ever done like a power raising exercise like that? Like rubbed your hands together and then seen how it felt? Have you done something like that
Yes.
before?
Hmm.
Yeah. There was this cool one when I first started practicing that was like if you rub your hands together and then pull them apart and try to push them back together again, it feels like magnets. And it is super cool.
Oh.
I'm not gonna like sit here and rub my hands together for you guys right now, but like that was how I started learning how to feel and sense energy.
One thing that I found super cool, I did a Reiki class once, and
Ooh.
the instructor kind of showed us how to close your eyes and put your hands out, and I would literally like see colors as I was doing it. And she said, "That's your aura." And so like sometimes I do that. I'll just close my eyes and like kind of go through the different colors. It was really cool because I remember I was like, she's like, "Are you seeing?" I think it was red. I was like, "I'm mostly seeing purple." And she grabbed my hand and pulled it closer to me, and then suddenly like my vision went red. I was like, "Oh, there it is." It was really cool.
That's super cool.
How
Yeah.
fun.
What a cool experience. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have never like experienced auras as a like a color situation before, so that's fascinating to me. And I know
Hmm.
that's most people's experience of them, but for me it's more like that person looks pissed.
So secrets and guys.
Guys, where?
This magical note pretty much talks about summoning a benevolent spirit to yourself. They talk about how white lighters are guardian angels and things like that, and it tells
Oh.
you how to do that. And then it says you can only hope your protector is as handsome as and more available than Brian Krause.
I like that.
That was funny.
Have you ever done any spirit conjuration before? Have you ever like done that, like try to do invocation or like conjure spirits?
Actually, yes.
Okay.
There was a ritual, like a meditation to summon your spirit guide, and I have
Okay.
done that before.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's usually where most people start in conjuration is like trying to get in touch with their spirit guides or their higher self. When I'm doing spirit conjuration, it's normally like I'll light some like sandalwood incense and leave out some sweet stuff for the spirits that I'm trying to work with. And then just be like, "What's up, guys? Do you want to hang out? You want to help me with this stuff?" It's very like there are times where I am very formal about my witchcraft, and then there are other times where I'm silly as fuck because it should be fun. It should be fun.
Yeah.
It's about like raising energy is way harder to do when you're super like somber and serious than when you're like twerking to Chapel Roan. You know, like you gotta do what you gotta do to get there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that. So this next one is there a Woogie in the house? It's another long one, but basically what it's talking about is it talks a lot about residual energy and how items can like pick up on that energy, especially like the Charmed or the Hollowell Manor being a place of lots of witchcraft taking place there. Of course it's going to pick up the residual energy, and of course the Woogie's going to want to live there. And so it talks about how like that's why some places may not feel as inviting or happy as other places because of the energy. Last year when I went to Anne Frank's house, and I remember there's like
Uh-oh.
a part of the building that is new, and they built it next to the original house. And the minute I went from the new part into Anne Frank's actual house, the air just got so heavy. I got so sad. Like I just felt everything walking through there. It was tough.
Ugh.
Do you know that there are people that can't do that though? That like can't feel those kinds of things when you walk into a place? Like
Mhm.
it's so strange to me because I have those kinds of experiences all the time when I go places. It's like
Yeah. I
my
get a vibe.
yeah, my husband like he lost a family member recently, which was very sad and unfortunate. But he got like a family heirloom chair kind of sent over. It's this really like comfy green upholstered chair. And the second he brought it into his house, I was immediately like, there is so much spiritual energy on this chair right now. I cannot go near it. I have to be elsewhere. So the second I sit down in that thing, people are going to start talking to me, and I don't have time for that today.
Right.
so- And it's just crazy to me because I was trying to like kind of show him how I felt about it. Like I was like showing him where I felt the energy like radiating start, and he was like, well, it feels a little bit warmer over here, but I don't really feel what you're feeling. And I'm like, but how? But how do you not feel it? It's just like it's just there.
Yeah.
Which is wild to me. But I didn't know that this book was gonna be this good. I might have to like take back my statement at the beginning. Yeah, there's some good shit in here.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's legit. That's pretty legit.
Yeah, I worked in a theater called Majestic Theater, and that was lots of history. I think there was a fire there at one point, and I'm like, I felt really uncomfortable doing the show there. But it's also, this is before House Call, and the House Call was a whole episode about that too, the phantasms and the residual energy of all the Vanquishes.
Oh
So-
yeah.
All right. Oh, wait, which proves it anyway? Which proves it anyway?
That was the first episode of my show you were on.
It was, yeah. All right, so magical notes. Phoebe's visions of the future beg the simple question, is it destiny or can it all be changed? That question carries over into real-world practices like divination and astrology. For most practitioners, the future is seen as a series of possibilities emanating from points of decision or particular events. Few believe in an immutable series of actions, choosing instead to believe that humans can create their own destiny with sufficient attention and work. We've already kind of talked about this kind of thing. What purpose is there then in the divinatory arts? If nothing is set in stone, is true prophecy possible?
I am gonna go with no. And the reason that I say that is because every single choice that we make impacts something in our lives, right? And we can become aware of specific things that could happen from our choices through divination. And that's what I sort of think it's for, allowing you to recalculate to avoid things as opposed to predicting exactly what will happen.
Right.
At least that's how I feel with tarot. However, when you get into like astrology, I know some astrology readers that can get like down to the letter with things that will happen to people that have then been corroborated by people that will come back into the store. And some of it is so weird. So it's kind of up in the air, but I feel like the answer to that question overall is no, just because I could do a reading for someone and be like, well, I feel like in 6 months you're going to encounter this thing. And then they could make every single different choice after the reading or have disregarded everything that I said and their life would completely change 20 minutes later. So it's just about having a little bit more perspective and awareness, I think.
Yeah. It shows you a path that could be, but there's all these other paths that could be.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just about picking the one that's the least tumultuous or rocky, I think.
Yeah. I sometimes obsess over that idea though, like even as simple as what would have happened if I would have turned right instead of left? Like would my life have been altered in some major way? Or what if I had gone over to that guy's house that night? What would have happened, you know? Stuff like that.
You got to trust those vibes too. Like there are
Yeah.
times where like I'm like running to miss the to get to the train or whatever, and it leaves just as I'm pulling up, and I'm like, maybe I would have gotten off of that train car at my next stop and like gotten shot or something. Maybe that's why I missed my train that day. And it allows you to just be like a little bit more grateful, I think, even for the like kind of inconvenient or shitty stuff that happens. Because it's like, well, now I have a little bit more time to myself, or now I can like do whatever or not die, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. That 70s episode. Ooh, I like this one.
I love that one.
One of the few episodes where we see witches living in a family setting and a variety of generations in an openly magical household, with younger ones learning from older. How different might a real child's younger years be in such a close-knit, supportive, and magical environment?
That is a really cool question, especially because I see people now, like parents come in to the store that I work in with their children all the time. And they're like, my son has an interest in witchcraft and I want to know some things that are like safe and accessible for him to get into. And there's a lot more support about the interest in witchcraft these days. And so I think that like thinking about it from that perspective of like, if you can be open about your interest from an early age and continue to pursue it, like how proficient of witches these kids will be when they get older is like, it's going to be leaps and bounds ahead of the people that are in the sphere now.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
We're on bad. Well, let's go good. And I knew I was gonna have to bring this up eventually, but here we go. Okay, so this is the magical notes of when bad warlocks go good. Okay, the nature of warlocks gets fuzzier than ever in this episode. No kidding. As does the nature of their powers. Brendan claims that ordination will remove his powers, making it impossible for him to become a warlock. Yet, as Phoebe tells Prue and Piper in Something Wicked This Way Comes, the girls were born witches. If warlocks are evil witches and warlocks are initiated, why wasn't Brendan simply a witch to begin with? By the circumstances of this episode, here, a warlock would seem more like a demon than an evil witch. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I told you I had problems with this episode.
Mhm.
You talked about it in your show too, Phoenix.
Yeah, we did. I want to hear your thoughts first, though.
Warlocks, according to Charmed, are evil witches.
Yes.
Warlocks can be born or they can be swayed. If they're just like witches, it'd be the same thing. Witches can be born or they can be swayed. So I was always perturbed by the idea that if Brendan became a priest, he just loses his powers, because we talked about too how they're not mutually exclusive. You can be a Christian, you can be, in that and still have magic. You can still practice magic. So that bothered me. If Warlock is an evil witch and they have the powers, shouldn't they have the option to choose how they use those powers? Can they become just a witch and use their powers for good? So, I mean, that's what makes sense to me. And they just, I don't know.
They just done fucked up in that episode, to be honest.
Yeah.
That was such a good opportunity for Charmed to be super different, in that it would allow for validity for all different kinds of magical paths, and they just decided not to.
Yeah.
I think Brendan being a priest and also a witch would have been really cool. I think that would have been really cool. And also the whole evil power. Yeah. The evil power of 3 thing, that should have been season 1 finale level material.
It should have been season. Yeah. It should have been they should have been Billy and Christy at the end. They should have come back. They should have resurrected. Been the evil power of 3. Easy.
Yeah, easy.
But yeah, and I was always kind of bothered a little bit by the that you had to be saved by Jesus in order to have a happy life.
Yeah.
Mostly because of the way that kind of media, it just makes it seem like blindly following. I didn't like just the connotations with it. If they explained it more and got more developed, maybe it could work. But
if they had given a reason, the baptism actively cleanses my body of the negative energy or whatever. Okay, yeah, that's what that's for. Cool, we'll use that magically. But they just didn't. They didn't use it responsibly, and I think it was. I mean, that episode is very clearly a please stop sending hate mail to our actresses, we're good people kind of episode.
Exactly. And then they don't know the difference between demon and warlock in their own lore. Either, so, because why do they have to transform? That's a demonic kind of thing.
Yeah, those. I will never, ever, 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 ever forgive those earlobes. Ever.
Just dripping.
Melting off the side of his face while he's playing in a priest's blood. That's just not. No.
Well, blindsided.
This is our first canonical error. Put that in your canonical hat.
Oh no.
This episode is actually called Out of Sight. It is known by Blindsided in UK and Australia mostly, but Out of Sight is their true name. Blindsided was a WB promo title that was used, and then it kind of stuck in certain places. But yeah, it's actually called Out of Sight.
Okay, interesting. The magical notes, I'll summarize. They talk about auras. We already kind of got into auras, but it's an extension of energy from your body that shows up in different colors. And what I kind of learned is I used to think people are just walking around all one color. If you see auras, that person's yellow, that person's green. But it's more so a mixing of the colors and colors coming forward more if you're feeling a certain way more.
The ultimate
So if you
mood
can
ring.
see oars, you can kind of do it. Yeah, like a mood ring, a personal mood ring, as a Magneto shield. Um, it does talk about. I thought this was really cool. It talks about the Carillion photography, where they took a picture of a leaf that had been cut in half, and with this photography, they saw it as a whole. So this was kind of a science that bridged the gap between metaphysical and physical sciences.
Ooh, that's
Mhm.
super cool.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
like totally retain all of that information, to be honest, but it sounds really neat.
I hate you so much right now.
I'm so sorry. I like heard all of the words that you were saying, but like I didn't process them all.
Next is the power of two. And immediately I have another canonical error because it says, parentheses, the ghost of Alcatraz. It never had a subtitle. This was never part of the title. Why are you making a subtitle happen? No,
It's never gonna
called
happen.
Ghost of Alcatraz. Yeah, it's in the episode, but not part of the title. I don't know where that came from, but yeah, okay. That, Jackson Ward, a spirit can't travel over water, fits with all the established folklore. If the Halliwell women had known the rest of that lore, they might have had an easier time dealing with the murderous ghost. Traditionally, a spirit can't cross a circle of salt, roses, or vervain either, which means they could have at least contained him under the banishment until the banishment could be handled under safer conditions. So they could have contained him other ways.
Yeah.
Which
The
was
charmed
funny.
the charmed ones are stupid. They don't
They are.
they do not know anything. And like they have this huge responsibility to protect the world, and they don't even know how to do witchcraft. Like if they can't stop it by like freezing it, kicking it, and flinging it across the room, they're fucked. Like
Yeah.
it's always the biggest
Yep.
deal in the world when they can't solve a problem in 2 seconds. It's
Like, oh no.
what do you mean
Like, I don't
you
know.
didn't? What do you mean you didn't blow up? Like,
Like, come on, Book of Shadows, tell me something.
right? Like
Yeah.
literally. Like Marcy could have dealt with Jackson Ward in 5 seconds. Okay.
See?
True.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we love her.
Well, love hurts. The spell obviously included more people than Piper intended to affect. After watching the setup for this spell, or rather, the lack of preparation, what do you think might be done differently to prevent such accidents in the fuchsia?
I mean, easily. They could have just set a circle around them and made it so the spell only affected them inside their circle. Easy.
Or like
Yeah.
literally like tag locks. Like get a little piece of Leo's hair or his spit. Or I know that you guys had to have banged recently, so just like find the condom and use that. Like and cast the spell on that.
Yeah.
So it
See?
just affects the people that you're trying to make it affect. Again, it's like Witchcraft 101, and they just skipped that course altogether.
All right, we're finally at the finale of season 1, and this one says Kit's alleged ability to spot evil demons isn't entirely rooted in either Wicca or witchcraft. The belief that cats and dogs could see fairies dates back to the last turn of the millennium in Ireland, with cats being noted for a dislike of the magical folk.
Cats have they've often been thought of as guardian spirits, even like dating back to ancient Egypt. Cats being revered in that society probably came a great deal from their ability to control vermin, right? So like
Right?
True.
during the plague, the reason that like black cats became so heavily associated with witches is because the people that had cats weren't dying from the plague, because the cats were killing the mice that had the fleas that were spreading the plague. And so they were like,
So,
what do you mean you're not dead? Witch! And then they just kill them.
Witch trial.
season 2.
Initiation.
Season 2.
Woohoo! Initiation is a ritual consistent with both Wicca and witchcraft traditions. But while Wicca recognizes both self-initiation and initiation through coven-based ritual, witchcraft tends to recognize only the group rituals of initiation.
Yeah, I think that's legit. I think that like anybody that wants to practice witchcraft can. It's not to say that they'll
Yeah.
all do it well, but they can.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Everyone's
everyone
welcome.
is welcome. Everyone can
Mhm.
give it the good old college try. You know,
If the Hollowells can do it, you can do it.
if the Hollowells can do it, anybody can do it.
Yes. All right. So now we're at 2 Morality Bites. And this says, despite the supposed fate of Melinda Warren in Charm's fictional colonial period and the pyre waiting Phoebe in Charm's future, in America's real Salem trials, the women and men convicted of witchcraft were hanged. One was pressed to death, none were burned. Even in Europe, where many more were convicted, burning wasn't always the death of choice. The public spectacle depicted in this episode, however, faithfully reflects the circus feeling that often surrounded such execution.
Yeah.
My favorite witch trial test was the one where they tried to see if you would float or drown. Because
Yeah.
then
my
like,
God.
because it's like if they survive, like if they weren't a witch, you just killed them
I know.
anyway.
Right.
Like,
It's so
like what? Yeah, no, it was horrible. The
Yeah.
the witch trials were terrible. A lot of people died, and it was awful. But
I want your land, so you're a witch. I want your money, so you're a witch.
mhm,
It's all about people trying to get up the ladder.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
about power and control always.
Next up, we have The Painted World. This talks about knowledge and how real witches expect knowledge to come slowly. It talks about a Tai Chi master in Japan who even like refuses to acknowledge students who haven't attended every single one of his classes for at least 5 years. So it compares this to Phoebe. She went in, she did a spell without having full knowledge, and it backfired, like it does all the time for the sisters.
Yes.
It's just sloppy witchcraft, honestly. No, that is cool though, because there's a lot to learn when you first start studying witchcraft, and it's really, really overwhelming at times. Just this like vast amount of information and practices and belief systems that are out there. So I always tell people, start with what you're the most interested in, what you think is cool. You know, if you like crystals or candles or herbs, do that first, and you'll learn the other stuff along the way.
So it's like devil. It's just pretty much devil's music. Talks about the devil. You got that.
Angry, angry devil.
Yeah.
Angry devil. Bleh. Well, she's a man, baby, a man. This talks about how incubi and succubi may not even have been a physical manifestation back in the day. Like we think of them as like sex vampires, basically. But I guess back in the day, people would go into temples and pray for a spiritual or a god to inhabit their body. And that was more so what the incubi or succubi was. It was a term for when they are inhabiting the body. So that was really interesting.
That's super cool. I actually didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. That's
Mhm.
really cool information. Okay, this book is
You're
book
welcome.
is good. Okay, I take it back from earlier. I fully retract that statement. It's a good book.
Okay.
There's cool stuff in here.
This section especially. This is my favorite section of the book. So Sean is running low on time, so I'm going to just skim through my notes.
Okay.
So we were on the old black magic.
Yeah.
This pretty much talked about the Tuatha De Danann, which we already talked about in past episodes, because Tuatha was there. They're everywhere. Talked about pricking, how like pricking is the color of the blood, or if they don't bleed.
Yes.
The water demon in P3H2O.
Ooh, the water demon's cool. Probably literally too.
Yeah. Physics killed him because electrocution. That's what they brought that up. Reckless Abandon talked about suicide and the afterlife, and how a lot of Christians believe that if you go to hell if you commit suicide and all that stuff, and how that's not really.
Yeah, that's a little bit harsh, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like if you get to that point, you've had it bad enough, honestly.
Right. Healing spells in Awakened. Those are very prevalent.
Everywhere. Healing spells are everywhere.
Yes. Past lives, part of my past. I'm sorry, we're totally skimming through. I know, but
That's okay. It's your show, girl. It's fine.
right.
I'm just here.
Well, Murphy's Law. For Murphy's Luck, they talk about Murphy's Law.
Yeah, that one talked about how you can't like conjure luck.
Yeah.
It's not a magical thing you can do.
In How to Make a Quilted of Americans, the only note I put is it says witches are interesting.
True. I'm fascinating.
And then Chick
Oh.
Flick talked about spontaneous magic.
That would have been a good one to talk about, like pop culture magic, but I don't think that
Yeah.
was quite as much of a thing then as it is now.
Yeah, going with your gut is sometimes, okay. Even though it seldom works without consequences, they say. 19 Ex Libris talks about demons and how not everyone believes in them.
I certainly believe in demons. I don't think they're all bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think they're just what they are, and it's not really their fault.
Yeah.
And actually the word demon comes from daemon, which just means spirit. So
I learned that because of the Golden Compass book.
Golden Compass.
Boop, boop, boop.
see, pop culture teaches people about witchcraft all the time. All the time.
See?
Yep.
Astro Monkey, and talks about like the blood's esoteric and practical aspects and what can actually be transferred with blood. What are the rules on that? Does it make sense?
Diseases.
Yeah.
Don't
Mhm.
don't fuck around with blood. Don't do that.
Apocalypse Not talks about the ranks of hell and all the names for those guys.
Well, God,
then-
you could talk about that forever.
It was a really long thing they put on. But yeah, Jinn. Be careful what you wish for. It talks about the genies and the Muslim demonology and Judeo-Christian roots for that one.
That's a lot of info.
The next part of this book, after they did their little magical notes episode guide thing, was bloopers, and they went over every episode and gave bloopers. Some had a lot. Some said, "Did you find any?"
I know. I felt like I was watching Dora Explorer. What did you find?
Is it like the IMDb sort of like inconsistencies thing? Like this was here, or and then it was in a different place in the next shot, or like stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of those
them are
things.
small.
Yeah.
There was this one episode, season 2, episode 1. When you watch it now, like on a regular size, like a normal size TV now, you can see a crew member's feet like crawling out of frame in like the bottom left corner.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that come up once they went to widescreen because they were not intended to be shown in widescreen. They were shown on full screen. So now with these all HD things, you get a lot of new bloopers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which is fun. So the things that she mentioned in this book will not have those because she did not see them in that dimension.
No, she didn't. That's a really good point. Wow.
Yeah. But there was a lot that she did find, and I'm not going to go over them all because there's a lot. I'm just going to summarize what they generally were because there are a lot of like repeated types of bloopers. A lot of hair goofs, like her hair's this way, now it's this way, or purse and prop goofs, things like that.
Her purse went from one arm and then to the other.
But that's supposed
And
to
then
happen.
it just wasn't there.
So that was an intended blooper. But then he was talking. I think they bring that up. Let me find that one. That's out of sight, not blindsided. Out of sight.
Get over it.
In this episode, a reporter looks for bloopers on his videotape. Bet you he would have caught these bloopers during this episode.
LOL.
I thought it was funny that there actually was a blooper in the bloopers, like a blooper in the book of this blooper in the blooper section. It's ironic because she put bloopers for Witch Trial and Morality Bites together for both episodes under Morality Bites.
Oh.
So I'm like, these are
What
supposed
a
to be
dumb
in there.
bitch.
I know, like your book has bloopers, girl. Like,
What a jerk, Phoenix. You can't just call people a dumb bitch.
So while we're not going to go over these, Sean, were there any things that you read that tickled you? Any bloopers that you laughed at or thought were funny?
I noted this one just because I noticed it watching the episode. I thought the dead man dating one was funny because, yeah, Mark, like, it's inconsistent what he can touch and what he can't touch. Like, he can't open a door, but he can sit in a car and hitch a ride. Like,
Right.
It's just kind of funny.
Yeah, what? How?
I talk about that all the time. It's just like, I can selectively solidify, corporealize, whatever.
Yeah, I can sit in a car, but I can't eat Piper out. That sucks.
Right.
Wow. That escalated quickly.
Essentially, that's really what it's all about.
Yeah.
I want to eat your Chinese cooking.
Chinese buffet. I also like that 70s episode. It talked about how there was like the same shorts, like the same couple of like extras who were like walking out of the bar or the restaurant, and then
Oh,
they were
yeah.
also in the restaurant right after.
It's like, oh, interesting. Maybe they're warlocks.
It
Yeah.
is an episode about time travel, Sean. So
That's true.
I have one. I like the one in Part of My Past where they talk about how Phoebe comes into the hospital with her necklace on, and when Anton goes to put on the actual amulet, the necklace disappears. So she gets rid of one
it's
for
not
another.
there.
Yeah.
That's
Oh.
funny.
And then there's another one that I thought was funny about in How to Make a Quilt of Americans, how Phoebe is so mad about like having to wear glasses, and Bruce tells Phoebe that she's like, I'd wear glasses if I needed them. I'm like, bitch, you were wearing glasses the entire first 2 seasons when you're at Buckland's. Like,
Yeah.
True.
so that was
Accurate.
funny to me. There's a little note here about a local resident who lived in the neighborhood where the Innes house, Halliwell Manor, is. And it says, a local resident who doesn't like Charmed filming in his nice Victorian neighborhood is so determined to make life difficult for the location crew that he's been known to bang pots and pans together to spoil their sound. And this is true.
What?
This happened while they were shooting a lot. He's like, get out of my neighborhood!
What a piece of shit.
You've got to really hate life, like at that point.
Yeah, like, I am sorry, if there was like a hit TV show filming across the street from my house, I would tell everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
And I
would go
believe,
make
like-
friends with the crew.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. Fans would come to visit and he would like try to like deter them away. He's like, oh, it's not over here.
Oh my God.
Like,
What a
I
jerk.
forget that guy's name, but yeah, I've heard about him. So that's the bloopers. Then we have the final section, which is the people who charm, which is generally just like a biography of the actors. It tells you their names, their birthday, siblings, what religion they are.
It has what religion they are?
Yeah. the upbringing.
That's a weird piece of information.
Not for everybody. Like T.W. King, Theodore William King. This is Holly's mom's name. She has no siblings, and she went to school at the Professional Children's School in New York. I guess the only one they have is Shannon Doherty is religious. It's religious direction, Southern Baptist, and talks about how Shannon Doherty has, a weakness for horses, but also she has more than 230 pairs of shoes, which I didn't know that about her. And then they talk about, I don't know if you knew this, but when they did She's a Man, Baby a Man, she based it off of one of her ex-lovers. It says Shannon Doherty supplied a picture of her current beau. 3 hours, much makeup, and a bodysuit later, she decided she wasn't nearly as good-looking a man as a woman. But it makes me wonder who that was. Was it Rick Solomon or was it Rob Weiss?
Both.
Yeah, one of those two. It had to be because that's at the time. And then like Alyssa's middle name is Jane. I don't know if it's Janie or Jane.
How's
I
it
never-
spelled?
Jayne.
Oh, yeah. I would.
It could either be like Janie Briggs got a gun or, oh, no. I'm Jane.
I just. One of the things that I hate the most in names is misplaced Y's.
That's not where you think it is.
Sorry, we're Madison.
Yeah, it's from She-Hulk.
I hate it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't need to be there, don't put it there.
Yeah, she's fancy with that Y. And that's the book. So
That's the book.
I did have a few other canonical errors that I did not mention yet.
Canonical.
Just in general. When we went over the episodes, we didn't go over who, the actors and everything, because that's not really interesting. But I had to point out a very egregious error. She miscast people.
What?
In She's a Man, Baby a Man, she put that Michael McLafferty played Dr. Orwin Grant, Lex Medlin played Alan Stanton, and Nick Stabile played Inspector Smith. When in fact, Michael McLafferty played Alan, Lex Medlin played Inspector Smith, and Nick Stabile played Dr. Owen Grant. So she had all of their names in the wrong spot.
Oh no.
I was like,
Lies.
oh,
Those poor
Right.
generic looking white boys.
yeah. And Michael McLafferty comes back in season 8 for Malice in Wonderland as that cop guy that trains Paige. So I always recognize that right away. Yeah. And they misspelled Manny Hanks in their description. They put Mannie as Manny Hanks. Like, why?
Right.
See, that's where you need to have a Y.
Yes. It's like, weird. And then I detest. She put hyphens between white letter and dark letter. And I detest that so much.
Yeah.
Those are not right.
How dare she get the grammatical lore wrong? It's
Yeah.
one word.
Right.
And there should have been a Y.
It should have been a Y. Were there any final thoughts?
Well, I've definitely judged this book by its cover, and thought it was gonna suck. So I was pleasantly surprised that there was so much really useful, wonderful information in there. And you can tell that the person put a lot of effort into it, and that's really cool.
Yeah. And really early on in the show's run. So
yeah, we did it over on WBR. There's so much to dig into in season 1. There's so much real stuff in there that unfortunately starts to kind of like trickle out as the show goes on, but it starts out really super witchy.
Yeah.
Overall, I think everything that this book talked about was pretty legit, honestly.
Well, good.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything I was really expecting to come into this and be like wrong the whole time, but that was not what I had to do, which was refreshing, actually.
Yay.
So I think this book just did what Witch Bitches Review does before we did it. On it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I thought this is exactly what you do.
Yeah, it's exactly what we do.
I thought the magical notes for here were super fascinating, just to generally note, because they sparked so many conversations and lots of food for thought there.
Mm-hmm.
And the author pointed out a lot of fun bloopers, and some of the further consideration questioning of things was absolutely fair of the show. But I did think there were others that were rather like nitpicky and unwarranted.
Yeah.
Some of them were like, I wouldn't consider them like errors. Like she says, like in the Wendigo, that Andy didn't remember the sisters' names. How is that possible when he's known them his entire life? Although, like, this is when Agent Fallon come in. I think Agent Fallon was causing him to be flustered, and so there's a character reason for that.
Yeah.
Or like in that old Black Magic, they talk about like she's like, who? Why were the girls afraid of snakes? I'm sure they could take snakes. Like, but
because they're 3 women and it's a snake.
And I think, to be fair, I think anybody would be freaked by a wild animal in their house that's not supposed to be there, no matter what it is, snakes or otherwise. Like, this is not part of my normal world. What is it doing here?
Yeah, replace snake with like mountain lion, and it's a very different situation. So put it in perspective.
And I'll argue, like, how many people do we know, probably including ourselves, who freak out when there's a cockroach and they can't hurt you? Right. We just don't like them. They're gross. So maybe they just don't like snakes.
So there's lots of reasons. It was a weak argument to like go against. Like, no. So some of those things I was too much. I think she's just trying to fill her book.
She probably had a word count to hit. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Sean, having gone through the entire book, what are your thoughts on it?
I think it's a really interesting read. I think like the notes on the spirit board that we talked about before, about how they were originally meant to be for the reader and not for the spirit, was interesting. And this one we talked about, incubus and what they originally were. So it has some really cool things in it. And I think as icing on the cake, if you're a Charmed fan, like you get the magical history and you get the Charmed. And I think just like any magical book, not everybody's going to agree with everything because everybody has their own interpretation. But by reading it, you get to kind of learn from different people and start to make your own decision about what magic means to you. So I think there's value.
Yeah. This is the first non-Charmed novel book I saw, and I think it introduced me to witchcraft. So it was a great introduction for me, and I think it's a good like stepping stone to like discover. Some things I thought were a little funky, especially when they were doing some of the spells a little too much, but I do think it's a really great resource for the most part.
Yeah, based on what I heard from you guys today, I agree with that entirely. There's a lot of really good information in there.
We've turned him. We've changed Phoenix.
Listen, I will change my mind on a dime with new information. I am not the kind of person that cannot change an opinion. I will grow and I will change.
Do you have any like tip for future Whiteler about the whole book?
Oh, we're really just messengers? Guides? Think of us as guardian angels for good witches.
Tips for future Whitelers.
I was out being a force of good in the universe.
Just, something we could learn.
Keep your mind open. Like, there's so much to learn out there. I feel like the minute we're like, I know everything, or like, that's wrong or evil, like, you shut yourself off to a whole nother world. So I would encourage everybody to look into not only like different witchcrafts, but different religions, different ideas, different people's way of thinking. So that way you grow and like you sharpen yourself.
Good information can come from anywhere. And so you shouldn't discredit sources, even if they come from something that's opposite of you. Like there's a lot of people that I know that work with like folk Catholicism magic, and I'm like, ew. But there's still some useful stuff that I've learned from those people. So yeah. Just always be open-minded.
Yeah, always be open-minded. I would say, like, even though we made fun of the errors that were made, I would think very few things in life are perfect. Mistakes, defects, and surprises happen all the time with everybody. So I think, and the more complex the task, the more chances there are for error. So it's part of life and it's going to happen. I think it gives character. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So that's it. Yay!
Yay!
But yeah, so I guess tell people where they can find you, Phoenix.
You can find me most places just with my name, Phoenix Arcana Lightwood. I'm usually the only one because I made it up, and it's not an actual name. You can also follow my podcast, Witch Bitches Review, at WBRcast pretty much everywhere. And listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. If you liked what you heard here or you enjoyed Kevin's episodes on this book, you'd probably enjoy my show. So go check it out.
Yeah. Woohoo. So funny. So informative.
Thank you. That's what we go for.
Yeah. All right, Sean, where can you follow you and all your goodiness?
Follow me on Instagram under Sean Perret, our TikTok also under Sean Perret. This past weekend, I went to DragCon and had a blast and posted some pics and some video. I also have a lot of like concert stuff, our stuff for our other podcast, Solving for X, where we talk about X-Men media on both of those.
Currently X-Men Evolution. Yeah. All right, and then you can find this podcast at Words of the Witches, all the places. Words of Witches on the other thing that we don't talk about. And then, we will see you next week for a new book. We'll be studying the Book of Three. That will be the official companion, or one of two official companions. So, yeah.
Oh, that's really exciting.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Spell Worders. Your destiny still awaits.
Bring!